that Fire King zone. You know what I mean? Like the Garunix is floating endlessly. It's a Michael Bay movie out there.
What's up, everybody? Circus here, coming at you with this week's Rye Report. It's going to be a doozy because lots of crazy stuff has been... Wait, no, nothing crazy has been happening this week.
Just like every week.
Yep, it's just Blue Eyes winning the power rankings by like 27 points this week, which is, I think, down from the week before, believe it or not. But just the dominant deck in the format right now with no end in sight.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to argue that Blue Eyes is not the best deck in the game. It is, like, by far. Doesn't matter what type of tournament you look in, free, pay to enter, extreme prize pool, small prize pool, Blue Eyes always seems to end up winning. We just have Battle Step, almost $200 in prize support, and Blue Eyes, it was a Blue Eyes mirror match. So
right.
So it's the best deck, right? And
well, it got played like 300 times
fun.
Last week, 293 times, and the next deck was like 111. I think that was the water deck. I mean, it's just head and shoulders above everybody.
It's just a good deck, and the reason it's so good, right? Because we saw an amazing meta call to bring in Fire Kings to potentially counter them. It's so good because it's a deck that can easily side or main deck. And just like we said in the last Rye report, I specifically pointed it out. D Crow is going to come in. It's going to be huge, and that is pretty much what we've seen. If you go into the Discord, check the description, go to the Discord, check it out, boys. We post the top 8 deck lists from all of the tournaments that we host, and you can see the big difference. DD Crow in the main or the side deck, but a lot in the main deck.
And what does that one do again?
So it's a hand trap. You discard it, and you are able to banish a card in either player's graveyard.
Oh, so you hit like the stone or something like that then?
Yeah, so in the mirror, you would hit the stone, you'd hit the Garunix, and then Fire King goes, well, I don't know what to do now. I guess I lose. Dark Lords, you hit literally anything, and they just immediately fold. They really can't handle DD Crow. It's one of those cards that was just bound to become meta eventually. And here we are. It's for, I would say, very firmly in the meta, and helped pretty much the Blue Eyes deck overcome the Fire King threat. There was a threat of them being dethroned by Fire King, and then they're like, oh no, we'll just play this card and we'll be fine. Well, it's all good.
DD Crow, that's a card that came out like six months ago or something, and people are like, this card's gonna be broken, and we just haven't seen it until recently.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cards where it's gonna be good, right? Like even if it's not good right away, kind of like how Lancia was, where it wasn't good right away, but slowly over time it just became really, really good. Same with DD Crow. Same with any like kind of niche meta call card. Like those cards will eventually be good. You just got to give them time, right, for the right format for them to appear. And this is definitely the format that you want DD Crow in, because I'm pretty sure every meta deck kind of loses to DD Crow. Blue Eyes itself loses to DD Crow. Dark Lords lose to it. Fire Kings lose to it. The only ones that I think of is like Water Exceeds. I don't think they necessarily lose to it. That's like the only one. And then at that point, you just side it out and call it a day. Go Turbo Blue Eyes.
Right. So you were talking about Fire Kings a little bit. They ended up taking second place in the power rankings this week. I guess we kind of expected them to jump up like that, didn't we?
Yeah, Fire Kings, it's the stall deck of this format, the deck that's like, okay, swing into me, activate my D draw, and just, be very, very patient, play around Battling Boxer Veil, play around Cairo, play around whatever they have, and try to just bait your opponent. Because once you get into that Fire King zone, you know what I mean? Like the Garunix is floating endlessly. It's a Michael Bay movie out there. It's pretty much over for you. Like you're not going to be doing much. Except everything exploding every 2 seconds. But I do think that in the coming weeks, we'll actually probably see Fire Kings drop a little bit, because it's just one of those decks where just once you start to realize how to play, like when you realize how to play against Blue Eyes, it doesn't matter. They still keep blasting you anyway, right? Yeah, but once you start realizing how to play against Fire Kings, okay, well, let me stop activating D-Draw. it's usually not as good at that point.
Right. Get them out of their loop, and then they're in trouble.
Yeah, because then at that point, they're like, okay, I can't play 30 cards anymore because Destiny Draw is dead half my games. And then you go to 20, and then it's like, why am I even playing this deck? People have stopped essentially playing Necro Valley and just started switching over to DD Crow, which is much smarter because they still have access to their graveyard, but their opponents do not have access to their graveyards.
So they do something. They put like the Garunix in the grave by card effect, and then you just banish it, and then
you
they're
just banish
done.
it, and then they can't do anything. Yeah.
Okay.
So actually, now that you mentioned that, I said earlier waters aren't affected by DD Crow, but they actually are, because the infantry, if you DD Crow it, due to the rulings of Yu-Gi-Oh, even though it was sent to the graveyard, because the chain link didn't end before it got
it's
banished
not
from the
in
graveyard,
the grave, right?
it doesn't activate.
Oh no.
So yeah, literally DD Crow countering the entire metagame right now. Really good card. Go pick it up, boys.
So they activate like the Dweller. They send off what is it, the infantry?
Yeah,
and then
you just chain.
on that chain, you just chain right to that and banish it, and then
Yeah. Totally forgot you
nice.
could do that, but yeah, you can. And then they don't get infantry pop. So
Oh, that's well worth it right there. That's a good trade.
pretty good.
All right, what was next? Oh, water. So that was the most second played deck this week.
Yeah.
But it only came in like third place. It did win a couple tournaments, but I feel like this is the deck. A lot of people have it, but I just don't feel like it's that strong. Like it can win, but it's like its path to victory is really narrow compared to like Blue Eyes or something.
I mean, like I said before, it's the baseline of the meta. I feel.
Right.
You must be this wet to enter the metagame, if you will. And like if you can't handle the back row of the metagame, you're gonna get clapped up. And this meta specifically, back row kind of sucks. It's not that great. Blue Eyes has Heliopolis, and people have started reintroducing Spirit Dragon into their builds. Fire Kings have the option to go to Nephthys, although you don't see it very often. They do have the option to do so, and usually they can grind out back row because they themselves run like crazy hand traps to prevent the back row. And then things like Automats are still allowed to play Hey Trunade, which is already devastating enough against them. And even if you look at more basic things, for example, turn one Bowser's, turn one Bowser essentially says, if you don't have Book of Moon turn one, you're gonna lose to me.
Right.
So it's been frustrating for Water for sure. They're definitely not finding that footing that they had before, where Abyss Dweller was kind of carrying them against a Blue Eyes White Dragon deck, and ever since that deck pretty much changed their play style, Abyss Dweller is kind of whatever at this point. They've been having difficulty kind of coming up to be like the kings of the meta that some people thought they'd be. Still a decent deck, still the average deck in the metagame. It's whenever there's a deck that plays like heavy back row, they're always going to be in the metagame in some fashion, because it's back row. And back row, the greatest thing about back row is your opponent can misplay into your back row. So
right.
You're going to get free wins off of that no matter what.
Your back row can carry you for many turns if needed.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Right. We see that quite a bit in a lot of games.
That being said, it's kind of cool that more and more water decks are adapting the Buzzsaw Shark. So it's not just Open Diva and you win. Now it's Open Diva or Buzzsaw and you might win. And it's cool because the Endless Fish Hell build is also always there.
The like fish control or whatever they're calling it, or
fish control. Yeah, that build is a lot more interesting outside of Endless Trap Hell. That skill is just not fun. But the actual skill is really cool. You being able to use things like Fish Depth Charge and stuff like that is really, really neat.
That's when
that deck rarely sees victories, but it's a cool control deck.
We're doing King of the Hill, and they'll go into the XZs that can attack directly, and then they use concentrating current on it.
Yeah.
And cheese out those wins. Yeah.
It's basically Magilencia. Let's go.
All right. What's next? Oh, Automats. They came 4th place 3 weeks in a row on the power rankings.
Onomatopoeia.
They're just no movement there. No movement.
Yeah, they're definitely on the decline, They're still firmly in the metagame. A lot of people will lead you to believe that they are no longer a part of the metagame, but you do have to be prepared for Automats because they will sack you. I think it was actually 2 days ago we had 2 Automats in the finals, mirror matching. So
kind of ironically, Automats just sacked Fire Kings on screen here while we're talking about it.
So. They're think of any metagame that's had an OTK deck just beyond the Black Wings has been the one for the longest time, right? Where there's always a Black Wings, like no one really considers them meta anymore, but there's Blackwing somewhere, and it's gonna sack you in the top 4, so you got to be
Right, right.
prepared. This metagame is just hard, right? Because Fire Kings are all hand traps. It's hard to OTK through them. Blue Eyes White Dragons, all they have to do is just side deck Hollow Life Barrier, and even if you win game 1, it's really difficult to win game 2, game 3.
Mhm.
So it's annoying to try and play an OTK in the current metagame. They are still the best OTK deck we have for this metagame, but it's not OTK because, you know, like their monsters are huge. You know what I mean? It's OTK because they're using Hatred Nade and then Gaga bolt on everything you have, and or if they go turn 1, they do Bowser and just pray you don't have Book of Moon, and hopefully they can OTK you next turn type of
Right.
scenario. The deck's still fine. It's still going to be, you know, in the metagame. But it, like you said, I think it's just going to firmly be in that 4th place spot for the remainder that it's, you know, for the remainder that auto play is still how it works, you know. If that skill gets nerfed or not kind of depends. Like we said before, if that skill officially gets hit, the deck would just be too inconsistent and would probably fall off at that point.
No, this is, I was just thinking about, this is what we almost had to expect, right? Because remember when Synchro era was hot, Fusion, you know, Neo's Fusion became hot, and now we're in XZ's era, and the top decks are what? Synchro and Fusion with Blue Eyes, and then Fire Kings is just like a normal deck. I mean, I guess they can XZ's if necessary, but
Yeah.
for the most part, we're in XZ's meta, and the 2 strongest XZ's decks can't beat the 2 best decks in the meta, or they can, but they're, you know, they're not consistently beating the top 2 decks.
All
in
I'm
the meta.
saying is we had a good XC deck and everyone complained, and now look where we are.
Oh, you're still hurting from that one,
chat?
aren't you?
What's going on? What are we doing? You guys complain. This is what happens. The meta becomes stale.
It's all
Konami,
your fault.
it's time to release new cards. hopefully tonight, though, right?
Yeah, hopefully it leaks tonight. We'll see. Last deck then, Thunder Dragons. This is the one that's on, I would say, on the decline the most. A lot of people say, new people like, oh, should I get into Thunder Dragons because it's like a fan favorite deck for some reason. We're saying no, right? Because it just seems like it's on such a decline.
It's an older archetype as well. It's one that is already on the ban list and may see future hits. And there's no sign that it's getting support anytime soon. And to be honest, for how much it costs, it really is not putting up the results that you would expect out of it. Levianeer Turbo just isn't a good strategy anymore, especially with all the hand traps going around with Fire Kings in the metagame right now.
Right.
It's hilarious to think that in a Blue Eyes meta, the most bricky deck isn't Blue Eyes. It's Thunder Dragons. You know, they're the ones that are most dependent on opening up well. When you think about the other decks, Waters have the skills, so they don't really care. They just have to open one of their openers. Blue Eyes draw half their deck in 3 turns. You know, like it's not that bad for them. They don't care if they add Blue Eyes to hand. They have Ultimate Dragons. Automats have the skill. They can use the skill to unbrick. Fire Kings have hella hand traps and a bunch of searchers with the Fire King Island. They also don't care. Really, when you look at it, Thunder Dragons is the brick game. So when you're the most inconsistent deck, you're gonna have the most inconsistent results. It's still a very valid threat, right? Because Levianeer is no joke, especially when they get multiple Levianeers in a single turn. One pops, one attacks direct with the synchros and everything. It can get pretty crazy. But they can also summon, ride, and pass. You know, it's a tale of 2 cities.
Right.
It's not exactly, you know, they just throw the gamble out there. And that's really all it comes down to. Their inconsistency is just keeping them back right now.
Yeah, and they don't get good mills. Funny enough, on stream we're watching a little battle phase battleship, and Gokis are on there with their head judging, and they just stole the alternative dragon. I just find that hilarious.
There was the guy, during that tournament was a guy that stole 3 monsters in a row with head judging.
Oh, this is gross.
It was quite something.
Gokis ended up winning that whole tournament, right?
They did win the whole thing. Goki. Whenever there's like a mess of a format, Goki's always there because they're just super annoying to deal with.
Right. In case you didn't know, battle phase battleship. Basically, if you lose one of the games, you can choose a card or skill that your opponent has to take out of their deck. And somehow Gokis was able to navigate their way through the whole thing and win it.
It was Gokis with judging, and then another card that like stole. It was just a bunch of steal your monster Gokis.
It was hilarious. Yeah, I saw him steal a Heliopolis. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
But I don't expect Gokis to be making a return anytime soon.
Nah, especially with balance being well. It's funny. Balance is dead, but Gokis could technically still play the new balance. You just can't activate Suprix. Huh.
You just have to go first, right?
And Gokis would actually be kind of great against Fire Kings.
Well, here's the
Oh
thumbnail.
god.
No,
Oh
is
no.
this the new meta deck?
Oh god.
Gilkeys.
Please don't. Thank God they still lose hard to Karma Cut, so probably not. But
There you go. All right, we're gonna get out of here. I hope you guys enjoy the ride report. I always enjoy doing this video, of course. So if you did enjoy it, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and thank you. We just hit 10,000 subs on YouTube. That is just
oh no,
great.
my hair.
Oh, that's right. Rye's got to shave his head now. So next time
I
you
do.
see him, sans hair. And I'll get in the Discord because it's free. The tournaments are free. The new player help is free. And we're going to get out of here. I'm Circus. That's Rye.
Bye, YouTube.
We'll see you next time.